Yes, Prabhuji, now it is fine. I've started the live streaming also.
Just give me 1 minute. Yeah. Okay, start. So welcome all of you for this sixth session on the life lessons from Bhagavad Gita. Today we'll be doing chapter 4 entitled Transcendental Knowledge, very interesting, important chapter. So we'll begin with the recitation of these verses.
चतुर्थोऽध्यायः ज्ञानकर्मसन्न्यासयोगः श्रीभगवानुवाच इमं विवस्वते योगं प्रोक्तवानहमव्ययम् विवस्वान्मनवे प्राह मनुरिक्ष्वाकवे ब्रवीत् एवं परम्परा प्राप्तम् इमं राजर्षयो विदुः सकाले नेह महता योगो नष्टः परन्तप स एवायं मया तेऽद्य योगः प्रोक्तः पुरातनः भक्तोऽसि मे सखा चेति रहस्यं ह्येतदुत्तमम् अर्जुन उवाच अपरं भवतो जन्म परं जन्म विवस्वतः कथमेतद्विजानीयां त्वमादौ प्रोक्तवानिति श्रीभगवानुवाच बहूनि मे व्यतीतानि जन्मानि तव चार्जुन तान्यहं वेद सर्वाणि न त्वं वेत्थ परन्तप अजोऽपि सन्नव्ययात्मा भूतानामीश्वरोऽपि सन् प्रकृतिं स्वामधिष्ठाय सम्भवाम्यात्ममायया यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानमधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम् परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृताम् धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय सम्भवामि युगे युगे जन्म कर्म च मे दिव्यम् एवं यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः त्यक्त्वा देहं पुनर्जन्म नैति मामेति सोऽर्जुन वीतरागभयक्रोधा मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः बहवो ज्ञानतपसा पूता मद्भावमागताः ये यथा मां प्रपद्यन्ते तांस्तथैव भजाम्यहम् मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः काङ्क्षन्तः कर्मणां सिद्धिं यजन्त इह देवताः क्षिप्रं हि मानुषे लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा चातुर्वर्ण्यं मया सृष्टं गुणकर्म विभागशः तस्य कर्तारमपि मां विद्य कर्तारमव्ययम् न मां कर्माणि लिम्पन्ति न मे कर्मफले स्पृहा इति मां योऽभिजानाति कर्मभिर्न स बध्यते एवं ज्ञात्वा कृतं कर्म पूर्वैरपि मुमुक्षुभिः कुरु कर्मैव तस्मात् त्वं पूर्वैः पूर्वतरं कृतम् किं कर्म किमकर्मेति कवयोऽप्यत्र मोहिताः तत्ते कर्म प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात् कर्मणो ह्यपि बोद्धव्यं च विकर्मणः अकर्मणश्च बोद्धव्यं गहना कर्मणो गतिः कर्मण्यकर्म यः पश्येदकर्मणि च कर्म यः स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु स युक्तः कृत्स्नकर्मकृत् यस्य सर्वे समारम्भाः कामसङ्कल्पवर्जिताः ज्ञानाग्निदग्धकर्माणं तमाहुः पण्डितं बुधाः त्यक्त्वा कर्मफलासङ्गं नित्यतृप्तो निराश्रयः कर्मण्यभिप्रवृत्तोऽपि नैव किञ्चित् करोति सः निराशीर्यत चित्तात्मा त्यक्त सर्वपरिग्रहः शारीरं केवलं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम् यदृच्छालाभसन्तुष्टो द्वन्द्वातीतो विमत्सरः समः सिद्धावसिद्धौ च कृत्वापि न निबध्यते गतसङ्गस्य मुक्तस्य ज्ञानावस्थितचेतसः यज्ञायाचरतः कर्म समग्रं प्रविलीयते ब्रह्मार्पणं ब्रह्महविर्ब्रह्माग्नौ ब्रह्मणाहुतम् ब्रह्मैव तेन गन्तव्यं ब्रह्मकर्म समाधिना दैवमेवापरे यज्ञं योगिनः पर्युपासते ब्रह्माज्ञावपरे यज्ञं यज्ञेनैवोपजुह्वति श्रोत्रादीनिन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयानन्य इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति सर्वाणीन्द्रियकर्माणि प्राणकर्माणि चापरे आत्मसंयमयोगाग्नौ जुह्वति ज्ञानदीपिते द्रव्ययज्ञास्तपो यज्ञा योगयज्ञास्तथा परे स्वाध्यायज्ञानयज्ञाश्च यतयः संशितव्रताः अपाने जुह्वति प्राणं प्राणोपानं तथा परे प्राणापानगतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायामपरायणाः अपरे नियताहाराः प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेऽप्येते यज्ञविदो यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो यान्ति ब्रह्म सनातनम् नायं लोकोऽस्त्य यज्ञस्य कुतोऽन्यः कुरु सत्तम एवं बहुविधा यज्ञा वितता ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विद्धितान् सर्वान् एवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे श्रेयान् द्रव्यमयाद्यज्ञात् ज्ञानयज्ञः परन्तप सर्वं कर्माखिलं पार्थ ज्ञाने परिसमाप्यते तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः यज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम् एवं यास्यसि पाण्डव येन भूतान्यशेषाणि द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यथा मयि अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः सर्वं ज्ञानप्लवेनैव वृजिनं सन्तरिष्यसि यथैधांसि समिद्धोऽग्निर्भस्मसात् कुरुतेऽर्जुन ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते तथा न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते तत्स्वयं योगसंसिद्धः कालेनात्मनि विन्दति श्रद्धावान् लभते ज्ञानं तत्परः संयतेन्द्रियः ज्ञानं लब्ध्वा परां शान्तिमचिरेणाधिगच्छति अज्ञश्चाश्रद्धधानश्च संशयात्मा विनश्यति नायं लोकोऽस्ति न परो न सुखं संशयात्मनः योगसन्न्यस्तकर्माणं ज्ञानसञ्छिन्नसंशयम् आत्मवन्तं न कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय तस्मादज्ञानसम्भूतं हृत्स्थं ज्ञानासीनात्मनः चित्वैनं संशयं योगमातिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भारत ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे ज्ञानकर्मसन्न्यासयोगो नाम चतुर्थोऽध्यायः।
Krishna, so we welcome you again, all the participants, for today's sixth session of the course on life lessons from Bhagavad Gita. So we'll be doing the fourth chapter entitled Transcendental Knowledge. We'll begin with the invocation. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Shwapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Shagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Shavadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gauranghi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Shruti Devi Pranamami Haripriye Pancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Do you see my presentation?
No, Prabhuji, still the invocation page is there.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji, now we are able to see.
So in this chapter, it's known as I say, Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Jnana Karma Sannyasa. Karma Sannyasa means how to dedicate our activities for the higher cause and with the knowledge. Normally, if you want to sacrifice, we feel it pain that I'm losing something. But when we do with the knowledge, then we can do it better. So this chapter is entitled Transcendental Knowledge. So in this beginning, Lord Krishna is talking about how this transcendental knowledge has to be received. Just like there's a powerhouse and we are receiving the power supply, because this powerhouse has to supply power to all the places. Obviously, it is prepared at a high voltage and then we have to receive it through a step-down process. Similarly, this transcendental knowledge has to be received through what is known as a parampara. Para means higher. Parampara means from higher to lower. That is known as the descending process. There are two ways of acquiring knowledge. One is known as ascending process or Aroha Panta, which means we are trying to learn everything by ourselves. The other thing is Avaroha Panta, where means we receive knowledge from a higher source. So Krishna says how the Raja Rishi means saintly king. Two things are important. One should be saintly. At the same time, he should have qualities of a king. In other words, devotion is both theoretical and practical. If your devotion is just theoretical and not practical, that is also not good. Or if you are practical but you don't know the theory behind the devotion, that is also not good. So both are required. Therefore, Krishna chooses Raja Rishis. And they understood this science in discipline. So this transcendental knowledge is science. In other words, you can observe it, you can have you can verify it, and it works. Whether you know it or not, it works. So Raja is understood this science in disciplic succession. So discipline, unless you have some self-discipline, you will not be able to receive this knowledge. And so how is it coming? From Krishna to the sun god, then to Manu, then Ikshvaku. So Ikshvaku means the Lord Ramachandra appeared in the Raghu dynasty or the Sun dynasty. Why? Because sun is playing a sun god. We believe in a sun god. Normally, people think there's a sun planet and it's made of chemicals. But the Vedic conception is behind every physical conception, there is a conscious being. But it is this science in disciplic succession is broken. Broken means it's not that it's not lost, but it's not accessible to us. Just like when we lose the power supply, it doesn't mean the powerhouse has shut down. It means that somewhere it has broken, the connection is broken. So Krishna explains it to Arjuna, his devotee and friend. So why Krishna chose particularly Arjuna? Because he was his devotee, which means he is going to, even if Krishna told him something, he will go into practice it. And he is a friend, which means he has a very intimate relationship. Because even if we are following someone, the time it's quite possible that at sometimes we get stuck up. So unless we have a very close connection with that person, we won't approach him to solve our problem. So therefore, one should be a devotee and a friend. So devotee means one who dovetails. Dovetail means he uses all his faculties like the mind, senses, and the intelligence and the body. Everything, heart and soul, he puts into it. Now Arjuna's question was, after he heard that Krishna spoke this to the sun god and the Vivaswan, Manu, and Ikshvaku, then Arjuna had this logical doubt that sun god is born before you. We know that sun has been existing even before we are born, and it will exist even after we die. So how can I accept, or how will people accept that sun god, you spoke this to the sun god? And so then in reply, Krishna says about his own divine nature, of his own appearance. What is divine about Krishna's nature? That he remembers all his previous appearances, but not Arjuna. So two things are there. One is when we are attached to the body and we are separated from the body, immediately the memory related to that body is lost. Just like there are many old movies, if you see, the hero and heroine have a very close bond and one of them is separated from the other. Then they go into one state called amnesia. Amnesia means they completely forget about the past. So like that, what happens, every body we acquire, we remember as long as we are alive, we remember everything related to the body. The moment we are separated from that body, our memory related to that body is lost. So when we acquire a new body, then we have, except for some special cases like some past life memories. Now, whereas Krishna, because his body is always eternal, so he is able to remember all his previous appearances. But Arjuna is a special case. Arjuna is also a devotee and eternal associate of the Lord. But in Arjuna forgets, that is to facilitate the Lord's pastime. Just like you are enacting a drama. Sometimes the people who is playing a particular role in the drama, he has to forget his original identity and act according to the role of the character. So similarly, Arjuna is playing the role of a devotee. So momentarily he forgets about the greatness of God, so that he can hear from Krishna about his own greatness. Now then Krishna talks about the uniqueness, time and purpose of Krishna appearance. When does Krishna appear? Why does he make his appearance? What is his purpose? And what is the result of knowing about it? There should be some benefit, just like we are hearing this Bhagavad Gita. Unless there is some benefit, of course, there's a benefit just by hearing, but if we can understand it and practice it, so Krishna wants Arjuna to properly know it also. Now, then thereafter, Krishna explains how he is the creator and culmination of all paths. Because people may choose different paths. It's not necessary that people will accept Krishna as God or the Bhagavad Gita or Bhakti process, or someone may be an atheist also. But Krishna says he is the creator and culmination of all. In other words, he is giving many opportunities for people to reach him. But at the same time, all those paths don't go divergent way. They have to converge at some point. And that is Krishna. Now, Krishna reciprocates with the worshipper's mood. Ye yatamam prapadyante. As you surrender unto me, the reward accordingly. Now, in the process, Krishna is such a person that he can reciprocate with each individual living entity. In fact, it is said that he knows the names of each of the cows and calves in Goloka. So, if someone is surrendering to him in one particular path, then he comes in that way. I mean, he attracts that person on that path. And therefore, people choose to worship demigods. Why do they do that? For quick results. Those who are interested in quick results and are not so mindful about the long-term goals, they naturally go for someone who can give them quick results, just like you have fast foods. But fast food restaurant has been shown that it's not good for health because you're eating so fast and it is made very fast. And so we don't know what is the quality and all these things. So now Krishna created the four varnas. Krishna knows very well that people will have different options. They want to exercise different options. So he has given four varnas, just like how these four varnas are coming. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Varna means actually color. So what is color? Role of color here? The three gunas are there. Like you have yellow, blue, and red. You mix those three colors, you can get infinite shades. Similarly, people are basically a combination of three colors, three gunas. Sattva guna, goodness, Rajoguna, passion, and Tamoguna, ignorance. So if you observe any living entity, it is a combination of these three. Normally, you have one long object, you cut it into 3 times, you cut it, you automatically create 4 parts. So this division is based on the 3 gunas. And also the work, that is the brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa, the celibate, householder, retired and renounced. That is also based on work, and that work is also divided based on the 3 gunas. But although Krishna has created these 4 varnas, it is for our benefit. He doesn't get any benefit. Normally, a person is setting up an organization. He has something to gain from that establishment. But in the case of the Lord Krishna, he sets up this establishment for our benefit. He doesn't have to gain anything. Therefore, he need not follow this when he makes his appearance. And even if something seems to go wrong with the system, we cannot blame him because just like the powerhouse is supplying the power, it is not responsible for my misusing that supply. Now, the liberated souls worked by understanding Krishna. So, how people benefited by the system established by Krishna is demonstrated by some people who are successful. Then thereafter, Krishna talks about understanding karma or activity on the platform of knowledge. Some person is doing a work very mechanical way, and some person has higher education, he goes for higher education and does the same activity with more knowledge. Obviously, the quality of the work and the result of that activity is going to be much better. So therefore, Krishna is talking to Arjuna about working with the knowledge. And why one should work with knowledge? Because there are some intricacies of karma which are difficult to understand. In other words, when you do an activity, sometimes I am getting the desired result, sometimes I get no result, sometimes I get a result which I don't want. So why is it happening like that? So that has to be understood. Then Krishna talks about seeing inaction in action. What does that mean? In other words, even though you're doing some activity, the result is not going to affect us. That is what we ideally want because our nature is action. Actually, we get satisfaction from doing the action only. Although we think that we are getting happiness from the result of an action, if you carefully analyze, even the high paying jobs, sometimes people are not happy because they're not having job satisfaction. So the satisfaction comes from the action. As long as it's the action which you are supposed to do, that will give you the greatest satisfaction. So inaction in action means the results, whether good or bad, they don't hamper your doing your action. Then it's known as seeing inaction in action. So that is possible for a detached worker. Detached worker means he is attached to the work and not affected by this. Of course, obviously he has to work for some result, or there will be a result for any activity. Even if you sleep also, there's going to be some effect. So next, Krishna talks about how attaining knowledge through yajna, that is work done as a sacrifice. In other words, what is sacrifice means you do it for a higher purpose. The same work, when you do for the higher purpose, then you acquire some knowledge. That's what he calls experience. Nothing can replace experience. That's why we call a person expert. Means he has the same knowledge as someone else, but he has realized knowledge, practical knowledge. So this sacrifice is when you do an activity for the satisfaction of a higher person, higher authority, then you learn through that work. Now there are different types of sacrifice. What are they? One option is you can work someone superior to you, known as a demigod. He is a controller, superior enjoyer than me. You worship him. What does worship mean? You dedicate your mind, body, and words to serve that higher authority. Or there's an impersonal worship or Brahman worship. In other words, you don't worship one particular person, you choose to worship everyone, one kind of thing, because you accept them, all of them, as spirit soul. And some people do sacrifice of sense enjoyment. Their goal in life is only to enjoy. Other people tries to sacrifice through self-control. They understand that the more I regulate myself, I can live better. For example, there was one person who stopped eating and drinking, and he lived quite a long life. So they believe that if I regulate myself, I can be successful. And like this, there are many types of sacrifice. And what is the purpose of sacrifice? Ultimate purpose of sacrifice is development of knowledge. Because knowledge is power. That's a famous statement. So, and destruction of sins. What is sin? Sin means when you go against your nature, when you're acting against your nature, that is known as sin. Therefore, Krishna, how do we destroy, knowingly or unknowingly, we go against our nature? And how to destroy the tendency and how to attain the spiritual realm. Spiritual realm means how to overcome the three modes of material nature. And therefore, after this, Krishna talks about the method, results, and glories of attaining jnana. So what are the incentives of acquiring knowledge through work? What is the method of attaining knowledge through work? What is the benefit and what is the glories? So anyway, this has to be attained through a guru. Guru means heavy with knowledge. When you want knowledge, you have to go to a person. Just like if you want money, you want to go to a person who's rich with money. Similarly, if you want to acquire spiritual knowledge, you have to go to a guru who's heavy with knowledge. At the same time, you have to surrender. Surrender means you have to be willing to follow his instructions. At the same time, you cannot blindly follow his instructions. Therefore, you have to inquire. You have to ask to get your doubts clear, just like Arjuna is getting his doubts clear. And ultimately, one has to do service. In other words, one has to practice what he has learned under the guidance of the Guru. And conclusion, Krishna talks about the results and glories of jnana. The one result is there's no bewilderment. Bewilderment means you can see things very clearly, sober way, and pure vision, and destruction of sins. Because with knowing and unknowingly, we are doing so many things against the rules, violating the rules. So obviously, we are going to face the consequences. So with just like we are inhaling so many germs, and as a precaution, we take some medicines to kill the germs. Thereafter, Krishna talks about the role of faith in acquiring jnana. Just like if you have taken some medicine given by a doctor, you have to have faith in the doctor and the medicine. Otherwise, it has been proven that there's a placebo effect or something like that. When they're testing the efficacy of a medicine, drug, or something on patients, they can induce faith in the person on something which is not a drug at all, but still it works. So that's the importance of faith in acquiring jnana, and who can and cannot attain it, who is qualified and who is not qualified for getting this knowledge, and how to perform reaction-free work. And then Krishna encouraging Arjuna to rise and fight, rise above the three modes and perform your prescribed duty. So far, are you able to hear me and see my screens?
Yes, Prabhuji, it is clear.
So, in the previous chapter, that's known as Karma Yoga, how to attain perfection through work, Krishna described how lust causes material bondage. So what is lust means? As I told you, when we go against our prescribed duties, we are supposed to do in a certain way, but you get distracted from that. Supposing you're a student, your prescribed duty is to study. But let us say you develop a desire for some other activity and don't do your studies properly, then it is not, it causes bondage. Bondage means you end up in the wrong path. So how one has to curb the lust by deliberate spiritual intelligence? Because Krishna explained that lust is sitting in three places. One is intelligence, the mind, and the senses. When the intelligence decides to do something against the rules, then the mind and its senses cooperate with that, and they cause havoc. So unless the spirit is activated by its spirit, soul also has its intelligence, but currently it is dormant. So that has to be activated through knowledge. In this chapter, Krishna presents transcendental knowledge. There are different types of knowledge. As we will see, even the Vedas are giving knowledge. But that knowledge, mostly it is within the three modes. Again, we see four divisions of the Vedas. The same example I gave, supposing one rod is there, you cut it 3 times, then you get 4 parts. So similarly, because people are within the 3 modes, the Vedas have been divided into 4 parts: Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Veda. At the same time, it is not that one portion is only for Sattva, next portion is for Raja, and fourth portion, Tamo, not like all mixture. There is all knowledge is available in all the parts. People, knowledge for people in Sattva, Raja, and Tamoguna is there even in Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, and Sama Veda. So at the same time, devotion is also present in those Vedas. So Krishna presents transcendental knowledge by which one can be protected from the bondage of lust. So what can prevent us from going astray from our prescribed duty? So that is through knowledge. So what is preventing a person from becoming a criminal? Because he has some knowledge. Krishna describes how he personally gave this spiritual knowledge to great kings. Krishna, as we saw in the last chapter, he says that I also do prescribed duties, because if I don't do the prescribed duties, everyone will follow my path and that will cause destruction of the families. And Janaka, kings like Janaka, they also follow prescribed duties. So Krishna, how he personally gives this spiritual knowledge to great kings. Why he gives to great kings? Because they are the ones who can understand this and implement it, and who are meant to impart it to the citizens by education, culture, and devotion. The 3 things are important. One, first we have to give knowledge, and we have to create the environment or culture. Just like you have to set curd. It's not as a curd culture, culturing the curd or culturing the sugarcane juice. So you have to plant the culture, education, culture, and devotion. Once they are doing that, some result will come. That result has to be utilized properly, and thus help them utilize the opportunity of the human form of life. Because human form of life is very rare. Even the demigods, they look for a human form of life. And people in the lower planets also aspire for the human form of life. So it is very rare. And Krishna also chooses to appear in this human form to attract her. So in the previous chapters, Krishna described Nishkama Karma. Karma means activity. Nishkama means detached, work without attachment. So, and dutiful detached work. which is said to be the means to attain jnana. So why we should be detached from the results of our activity? Because if you want to, just like if you want to get higher studies, you do some studies, you get some degree, and then you don't stop with that. You go for some work experience, then again you come back. So this way you progress. Similarly, this work should lead to knowledge, so that you can perfect the work better. So goal of Nishkama Karma Yoga is jnana. Why we are trying to be detached from the results of the work? So that we can acquire knowledge in that process. So in this chapter, Krishna presents jnana or transcendental knowledge. So although we may acquire different types of knowledge, they are still within the three modes. So even if you have one type of knowledge, there will always be people with other types of knowledge which will dominate over what you know. So there's always a flux in the changes. Therefore, if you have transcendental knowledge, then it is surpasses all these other types of knowledge, and it's everlasting and joyfully performed. And the glories of such jnana, he begins by describing the lineage. He begins by describing the lineage in which that knowledge descends. So at the same time, this knowledge has to be received through a particular means. There's a lineage, just like the current is not coming directly to us, it is coming through some cables. Some channel is there by which we are receiving it. Just like water is also flowing, water is flowing through a channel. Current is flowing through a channel. Wind also, if you want AC or something, the AC has to flow through ducts. So like this knowledge has to, so that it can be received far and wide, it has to be received through lineage. Now, this lineage of transcendental knowledge is known as a parampara. As I said in the beginning, para means transcendental, para means parampara means disciplic succession, from the higher to the lower. So saintly, just like water is flowing from a higher altitude to lower altitude, current is flowing from a higher potential to lower potential. So this is the way naturally anything is flowing. So knowledge also has to be received from higher to lower. The saintly kings understood this imperishable. What kind of knowledge is this? Imperishable, abhyaya. And it's the science of jnana yoga, which means it is to be experienced and practiced through the chain of disciplic succession of parampara. Just like analogy is given, supposing a very valuable fruit or a ripe fruit is on top of the tree. It's very difficult for everyone to climb up the tree. And even if they manage to get it, to bring it down is not so easy. So what they do, they climb in a human ladder, they form a human ladder. And then one person climbs on that human ladder and fetches the fruit, and then it again passes it down through that ladder and doesn't drop it like that. So it is originating from Krishna himself, because Krishna is the controller, enjoyer, but by the influence of time destroys everything. So the succession was broken, and the science as it is appears to be lost. Here it says appears to be lost. There are many sciences. We say someone discovered something, someone invented something, but which means it is already there, but that person is given credit for bringing it to our attention. So Lord Krishna spoke this Bhagavad Gita originally to the sun god who is known as Vivaswan, and sun god spoke to Swayambhuva Manu, father of mankind. Manu means father of mankind. The word man comes from Manu. And Manu spoke to Ikshvaku. Ikshvaku is in the lineage of Lord Ramachandra. So, evam parampara praptam yamam raja rishayo viduhu sakalena hamahata yogo nashta parantapa. When the original purpose of the Gita was scattered by the motives of unscrupulous commentators, what happens when the knowledge is being received? People try to modify it by adding or deleting something according to their whims. Then it gets diluted. And there arose the need to establish the bona fide disciplic succession. So, because Krishna is the original authority, if something goes wrong, he himself has to come and set it right. Therefore, Lord Krishna spoke that science to Arjuna again 5,000 years back. So nobody else. So one may ask, why Krishna himself has to come? Can he not send his representatives or any avatars? No, that particular job can be done by Krishna only. Nobody can replace him. Therefore, he personally has to come. And he cannot speak to anyone and everyone. He has to choose a particular person like Arjuna. And because why? What is Arjuna's special qualification? You are my devotee and friend. Bhakto sime sakha cheti. Bhakta means someone who will follow whatever instruction is giving. Supposing you have a lot of money, you give it to a person who knows the value of the money. So similarly, Lord also chooses to give his devotion to a person who will value that devotion and he will give it to others. And at the same time, Arjuna is a friend, which means although he is devotee, he has a closer, intimate relationship. Just like everyone is an Indian citizen, we have a relationship with them, but someone is our family member, it is a special relationship. I am speaking to you that ancient and confidential science. So this is ancient. In other words, it is everlasting and long lasting. At the same time, it is confidential. Confidential means it is not easily understood. There are many sciences which are very subtle sciences. The common man cannot understand. It has to be explained by an expert to that person. What is the science of the relationship with the Supreme? Our relationship with God is very confidential, which is very valuable. Unfortunately, we don't understand its importance. Sayevayam ayatedya yoga prokta sanatana puratana. Puratana means very ancient. Bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam etaduttamam. The most confidential, most beneficial. And the qualification of a recipient of spiritual science is to be a devotee of Krishna. And the demons cannot understand it. So who is a demon? Demon means who wants to defy the authority of God, or defy the authority of the scriptures and the saintly people. So he is considered a demon. What is Arjuna's question after hearing this from Krishna? The sun god Vivaswan is born before you. How can I understand that you spoke this science to him? How can we accept that Krishna is the authority? Maybe someone else spoke the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna is just repeating that. In fact, if you see, some of the verses in the Bhagavad Gita are found in other scriptures also. So maybe Krishna is also quoting from other scriptures. So then what is the authority of Krishna? So therefore, being a devotee of Krishna, Arjuna knew perfectly well that Krishna, although appeared as the son of Devaki on this earth, is the omniscient supreme Lord. But atheistic people consider Krishna an ordinary man and may not believe that he is instructed the sun god. So someone may laugh at us if I say that Krishna spoke this to the sun god. The immediate reaction will be, as such people are not believing Bhagavad Gita or existence of Krishna and Arjuna. And moreover, if I say that Krishna spoke this to sun god, they will say it is all mythology. Arjuna wanted Krishna to authoritatively establish the truth about himself. Now Krishna answers. So to prove his point, now Krishna says how he is about his divine nature. Just like a prime minister is also like a citizen, one among us, but he is special in the sense that he has been bestowed with that power. Many births both you and I have gone through. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. Krishna is constantly encouraging Arjuna. At the same time, he is telling about his supremacy that he can remember. So as I told in the beginning, why we forget is we are attached to the body, and the moment we lose the body, everything related to that body is lost. Just like if you have a hard disk and it crashes, then all the whatever is stored in that is lost. Similarly, all the knowledge that we have is somehow stored in the body, and when the body dies, we generally forget it. So that's what happens. But Krishna's body being spiritual and transcendental, he never dies and therefore he never forgets. The conditioned soul who transmigrates from material body to another forgets everything due to change of body. So why is the change of body happening? Because our desires are never fulfilled in one particular body. We make different choices of these bodies and then we are not satisfied, and then therefore we are forced to change the body. And then whereas Krishna's eternal devotees like Arjuna also appear with him, but Just like the king is going somewhere, all his ministers go along with him. Just like when President Barack Obama came to India, then many of his close associates, they came along with him. So when Krishna makes his appearance, he doesn't come alone. He brings along with his eternal associates like Arjuna. But he covers their knowledge by the influence of Yogamaya to fulfill the purpose of his pastimes. The same analogy I had given, just like when a person is playing a drama, he forgets his original nature, original identity. He acts according to the role in the drama. So similarly, the associates of the Lord, in order to take part in the Lord's pastimes, they forget that their relationship with Krishna. Supreme Lord Krishna appears in various incarnations. Incarnation means avatar, which means Krishna is descending from his higher position, just like the Prime Minister sometimes comes to our house. So he need not come, but he comes to benefit us. So Lord Krishna appears in various incarnations, avataras, but does not change his Satchidananda body, his eternity, knowledge, and bliss feature. He never loses that nature, which is not different from himself. So everything in relation to him is spirit. Being omniscient, he remembers all his past appearances. So time is fully under his control. So there is no concept of past, present, and future in the case of the Lord. Basically, time is relative. Now, what is unique about Krishna's appearance? Ajo. Aja means unborn. Ajopi is an Abhyayatma. Abhyayatma means imperishable. Although I am unborn and my body is imperishable, Bhutanam Ishwaropi San. Bhutanam means living entities. Ishvara means I am the Lord, controller. Although I am the Lord of all living entities, Prakritim Swam Adhishtaya. Prakriti means form. Adhishtaya, in my original transcendental form. Sambhavami Atmamaya. Sambhavami means I appear. Atmamaya, by my own energy, out of his own free will. Just like sometimes the Prime Minister or President go to the prison to give some advice or instructions to the people who are in the jail. So like that, sometimes the sun is also making an entry into our house. It doesn't mean that the sun has entered my house. The sun has entered through its heat and light. Similarly, the Lord, out of his own desire, although we are forced to change our bodies and appear in this world, Krishna is not forced to appear in this world, but he does for a purpose. What is that purpose? And what time does he make his appearance? Just like the sun makes his appearance at a particular time. We cannot demand the sun to appear whenever we want. So, yada yada hi dharmasya, whenever and wherever. So people ask, only does Krishna appear only in India or only in the earth planet? No, whenever and wherever. Glanir bhavati bharata. Glani means decline. Dharmasya, decline in dharma. When people forget what they are supposed to do, when they have lost the direction, or religious practice. Religion means what you practice, that is known as religion. Some people say, I am a so-and-so religion. But unless you practice that religion, you cannot claim to be following that religion. So even a dog has its own religion, they say, which means every living entity is following certain belief systems. Wherever there's a decline, O descendant of Bharata, Abhyuthanam Adharmasya. Abhyuta Adharmasya means predominant rise of Adharma. Instead of following Dharma, when people are predominantly following something which is not their nature or religion, Tadatmanam Srijamyaham. At that time, I descend myself to reverse the thing. He himself has to come. No. Now, Krishna's able devotees can rectify the destruction of Dharma. So, why Krishna only has to come? Can his devotees or representatives not do that? Why is it necessary to Krishna to personally appear? Because Krishna performs feats which are very difficult for others to do. Sometimes we see in movies also, one person is sending his representatives for and they fail. Then finally the hero himself has to come. So something like that happens. Now, what is the purpose of Krishna's appearance? Paritranaya sadhana. What is his main purpose? To deliver the pious. He wants to save the people who are following Dharma. And then what is the next purpose? Vinashaya cha dushkrutam, to annihilate the miscreants. His first purpose is to encourage people who are following Dharma and to discourage people who are going against the Dharma. Just like the jail is there. Jail is also a part of the city or the country, but it is not occupying the major portion of the city. The main portion of the city is outside the jail. Similarly, the pious people are the ones who draw the attention of the Lord. And in the process, because they harass the devotees, the demons also are annihilated. Dharma Sansthapanardaya, to establish the principles of religion. Sambhavami Yuge Yuge, I will appear in every age, Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. These are the 4 yugas, and every yuga he appears. What is the primary reason for Krishna's advent to? So this already I explained, and so he's punishing the demons is also one kind of a mercy. Just like a policeman has to punish, there are some criminals. They are not happy when they are not arrested. They want to be arrested because they want someone is controlling me. They don't want to be left like that. So Krishna also gives his mercy by punishing. Some children want to draw the attention of the parents and get punished by the parent. Now Krishna is the primeval Lord, the fountainhead of avatars. So either Krishna personally comes or he descends in the form of avatars. Just like a same actor is there. He plays different roles in different movies. And this way we can appreciate that actor. Similarly, Krishna makes his appearance in different avatars such as Purusha avatars. Purusha avatars means this Karnodakasaya Vishnu, Garbhodakasaya Vishnu, Chirodakasaya Vishnu. There are 3 types of Vishnus. And then you have Gunavataras, means Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, who are in charge of the 3 gunas. Leelavataras means the Lord comes to perform pastimes like Narsimha, Vamana, Rama. And Satyavesha avatar means empowered living entities. They are living entities, but they are empowered by the Lord. And then we have Manvantara avataras. There are 14 Manus in a day of Brahma. So they are Manu, Swayambhu Manu, Vaivasvata Manu, Shakshusha Manu, like that different Manus are there. And Yugavataras means every Yuga, Satya, Treta, Dwapara Yuga. And all appearing on schedule. It is not random or haphazard way. It's all scheduled, all over the universe, not only in this planet, in all the universe. So what is the result of knowing about Krishna's appearance? Evam yo veti tatvatah janma karma chime devam evam yo veti tatvatah tyaktva deham punajjanma naiti mameti sojana. One who understands in truth the appearance and uncommon spiritual nature of my activities. What is the benefit of knowing why Krishna appears, when he appears, and what for he appears? So, upon leaving the body, doesn't take his birth again in this world, but attains my eternal abode. So once Krishna comes and performs these activities, we understand who is God, what is my relationship, and what is the purpose of that relationship. All that comes to our knowledge. Then Krishna tells about those who know about Krishna, they naturally become attracted to Krishna. Just like if you know someone, you start at loving that person and serving that person. So Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. Vita means being freed. Raga means attachment. Attachment to the 3 modes. And once you're attached to the 3 modes, you become fearful. Because the attachment produces duality. And fear produces anger. So being freed from attachment, fear and anger. Manmaya Mam Upasrita, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me. Asrita means take shelter of me. And Bahavo Jnana Tapasa. Bahavo means many persons in the past, by their true knowledge of me, with full knowledge about Krishna. And what did they do? Tapasa, austerity, tolerating opposition. When you're doing devotion, there will be definitely some opposition. When you're on the right path, there will be opposition. But you should tolerate that, knowing the benefit of that knowledge. Puta Madbhava Bhavita. Puta means become purified, purification. And Bhava, just like if you are meditating on something, you attain that qualities. So these people, being freed from attachment, fear and anger through knowledge about Krishna and his appearance and activities, They became fully absorbed in the Lord and took shelter of Him. And in this way, not only one, many people in the past, they performed austerity on this process. It's not an easy path. And they became purified and attained love. Purified means they became free from the influence of the three modes. Now, some people may not accept Krishna. Because they don't know about Krishna, and if they know Krishna, they don't somehow get attracted to him. So at the same time, Krishna says he is the creator and culmination of all paths. Krishna, he encourages people to come to him in different ways. But anyways, he has designed the system such a way that ultimately they will come to him. So Krishna reciprocates with the worshipper's mood. Why people has to create different paths for different people? Because people have different moods, they have different individuality, and he has to reciprocate with them accordingly. Ye yata ma prapadyante. In manner and mood, people surrounding, to the extent that they are willing to follow. Supposing you want to give a person who is recovering from some illness, you have to give him the food to the extent that he can digest. Or even if you are trying to give him some medication or some surgery you have to perform, that person should be fit to take the medicine or the treatment. Similarly, even if Krishna wants to give devotion to everyone, people are not receptive to it. So he sees the level of surrender. Tams tataiva bhajami aham. I reciprocate with them accordingly. Bhajami means I give them. Just like a rich person is there, he doesn't give his money to all the children, whatever way they want. He first sees whether they are prepared for it and then gives it. Mama vartamanu vartante manushya partha sarvash. Everyone follows my path. So one may say, okay, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in all this. Krishna says, even such a person ultimately will come to this path. Everyone follows my path, paths leading to me directly or indirectly in all respects, so Sannaprata. So whether you want to come directly to devotion or indirectly, you will ultimately, because the entire thing has been designed by Krishna, he will ensure that every living entity will eventually come to him. Now, so there are 5 types of relationships that are possible with Krishna, and there's a friend, as a parent, or as a lover, or a servant. Now, why do people worship someone other than Krishna? Because they want quick success. Why people don't want to eat at home? Because they want quick food, fast food. So they go outside. So just like there are instances where Ravana, he worshipped Lord Shiva, or someone, Hiranyakashipu, worshipped Brahma. Why? Because he knows very well that Krishna or Vishnu will not give the boons which he is asking. So he thought he's intelligent by going and asking the same boon from Brahma and Shiva, although Brahma and Shiva themselves know that it will not be good for this person. So so the processes other than devotion, like karma and jnana, either if you follow karma, you go to the heavenly planets. If you go jnana, you get liberation. But bhakti will help you to transcend the 3 modes and attain our original nature. Now, not only Krishna is encouraging people to worship according to their nature, he has also created these 4 varnas. As I explained the same example, if you want to split something into 4 parts, you cut it 3 times. So because people are in the 3 modes, he has created the 4 varnas. Chaturvanyam maya srishtam guna karma vibhagashaha tasya kartaram api mam vidya kartaram abhyayam. I created the 4 divisions of human society according to their qualities and work. Because by nature, people have different qualities and tendencies to do work. So to facilitate that, God has created these 4 divisions. In other words, it is for the benefit of the living entities. Now, although I'm the creator of the system, know that I am yet the non-doer being implied. In other words, he doesn't have to follow the system. Just like a child is sometimes given a cycle with 3 wheels, because it cannot drive with 2 wheels. Similarly, these 4 varnas and 4 ashramas are to facilitate us, and not the Lord is not depending on this system. And therefore, Krishna is said to be impartial. In other words, he is giving equal opportunity for everyone to do devotional service according to their level of advancement. Then why Krishna appears only in the Kshatriya family? Because he wants to set an example for others. It's not that he has to be born in that particular family only, but he chooses as a so namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spriha iti mam yobi janati karma birna sabhadyate. There is no work that contaminates me. I do not aspire for the fruits of work like heaven. One who understands this truth about me does not become bound in the reactions of work. Because Krishna is fully in control of the three modes, just like a spider is there. The spider, it makes a web, but it never gets caught in its own web, although it is a saliva of the spider, whereas every other insect gets trapped in the spider. So these three modes cannot bind the Supreme Lord who is transcended the three modes. So Krishna says that in the past also many people, by this knowledge, they became liberated. So so Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to do his duty by following in their footsteps. Now, understanding karma in the platform of jnana. Why we should acquire this knowledge? Because the intricacies of karma are very difficult to understand. As I said in the beginning, when I do an activity, I don't know sometimes what's going to be the reaction, whether it's what I want or will I get something which I don't want, or will I get no result at all. So then Krishna talks about one who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men. Analogy is given to explain this. Supposing a high court judge is there, he is sitting silently and hearing the arguments put forward by both the lawyers. It may appear that he is not doing any work. The lawyer or the clerk is doing a lot of hard work, but the judge is simply sitting and hearing and passing his judgment and is getting a very big salary. So, but no, he seems to be inactive, but actually he is active. So it is known as action in inaction. What about inaction in action? Just like a doctor is there, he's doing activity, he's cutting open the patient with a scissors or whatever, but he's not in prison for that. He is not jailed or punished for that because he's doing a benefit to the patient. Whereas the murderer is cutting open a person, he is going to be implicated by that action. So that is known as example of inaction in action. In other words, this doing work is also an art. One should know the science of doing work such a way you can get different results. Yasya sarve samarambha kama sankalpa vajjita jnanagni dagda karmanam tanaham panditam buddha. One who engages in all activities but being devoid of desire for sense enjoyment. In other words, a devotee can engage in all types of activities. Just like as you grow in, initially the parents, they forbid the children from doing certain things. But once they grow up, they are given more freedom, provided they have the maturity. Similarly, Krishna says, one who engages in all activities but being devoid of desire for sense. So what is the problem? The problem is not the activity. The problem is the attitude or the motive behind the activity. So that has to be burned up all reactions work by the fire of knowledge. In other words, if you just like the doctor is able to cut open the patient, but he knows that the knowledge is doing it. So therefore, we have to do knowledge, work with knowledge. The sages say that such a person is most learned. Now, what are the different stages in this process of acquiring knowledge? One is the Arurukshu, or the beginning stage, or sadhana stage. And then is the sadhya, or the Aruruda stage. Tyaktva karma phalaka, so giving up attachment to the results of his activities, being ever satisfied and independent. Although engaged in all kinds of activities, he performs no fruitive action. So main thing is giving up attachment to the results of activities. So what is this Okay, when he practices like this, cultivating knowledge through work, how do you know he is progressing? You can see these results. Nirashirata Chittatma, that is free from desires, self-control, free from sense of proprietorship, acts only for the bare necessities of life. He doesn't incur any sin, satisfied with what comes of its own accord, tolerant of dualities, free from envy, steady in both success and failure, never entangled, although performing actions. If you see these qualities, we can understand that the person is progressing through knowledge. Tolerant of dualities and steady in success and failure, never entangled through performing actions, unattached to the modes of material nature, fully situated in transcendental knowledge, acts for the sake of Yajna, Vishnu. In other words, he is serving the highest person, doesn't incur reactions, merges into transcendence. What is the goal of this? Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmapnam. Here the word Brahma is repeating. So by spiritual oblations with spiritual instruments. So if you're doing everything in the transcendental platform, the result is on the highest. He surely attains the spiritual kingdom being absorbed in spiritual activities. In other words, the activities have to be spiritualized. Just like a wire is there, you put it in contact with current, it becomes electrified. Iron rod is there, you put it in fire, it becomes red hot. It can be molded and designed whichever way you want. So like that, whatever faculty we have, body, mind, and senses, when we spiritualize it, it gives us the highest benefit. That is Brahma Nirvana. Now, there are different types of sacrifice, different types of reasons for which we can do our activities. One is demigod worship. That is, our objective in life is to please our superior, immediate superiors. Brahman worship, which means we want to go reach the impersonal Brahman, all pervasive Brahman feature, just like. And then some people do sacrifices for controlling the mind. Some people do sacrifices to enjoy the senses. Some people want to regulate their pranas or life airs, or in other words, their activities. Some people want to do dravya yajna. They want to give charity. Some of them want to do austerities, tapo yajna, because by doing some austerities, you can get some higher result. Some people do austerity sacrifices for attaining mystic powers. Some people do austerity sacrifices for getting spiritual knowledge, swadhyaya. And some people do sacrifices to regulate the breathing. Because once you control your breathing, your mind is also controlled. And then the process of breath control is explained, the purpose of sacrifices. The ultimate benefit of any sacrifice is sinful reactions are destroyed. It acts as a purification. Basically, the purification begins with our consciousness, which purifies our intelligence, mind, senses, and the sense objects. And even the objects become purified. So these sacrifices, where do you find them? In the Vedas. Who is qualified for which sacrifice? What is the way it is to be done? What is the benefit of doing these sacrifices? But ultimately, highest sacrifice is to get knowledge. And Jnanam Paramam Dhyayam. So the highest knowledge is transcendental knowledge, the knowledge about God. Now, what is the way to acquire this knowledge? One has to approach a guru, spiritual master. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas. Krishna is just trying to learn the truth by approaching a guru. You can't expect him to come to us. We have to go to him. We cannot expect the university to come to you. You have to go to the university. Inquire from him submissively and serve him. He can impart knowledge into you. Why he can impart knowledge? Because such self-realizers are seers of the truth. They have practical knowledge. Theoretical knowledge is not sufficient. The guru must have practical knowledge so that he can guide the student properly. So therefore, we should not blindly follow someone. At the same time, we cannot do absurd inquiries. Now, what is the result of this knowledge? There will be no bewilderment. You can see things very clearly, soberly, and we cannot commit mistakes. And it gives pure vision. What is the pure vision? Seeing all living entities and their relationship with God. Then we can coexist with every living entity. and it destroys sin, destroys the tendency to go against our nature. And it also destroys the reaction. Even if knowingly, unknowingly we did something wrong, the effects will not dominate over us. And it is the purest, pavitram, it purifies us. This knowledge will purify our consciousness and it will prevent us from doing the same mistake again. And who can attain this knowledge? One has to have faith. Shraddhavan labhate jnana. One has to have the faith. Faith in what? Faith in Krishna, faith in the scripture, and faith to follow that. If I follow this process, I will attain the highest benefit. Who cannot attain this knowledge? The ignorant, who wants to remain ignorant, the faithless, and those who doubt the scriptures, they fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the future. And then, what is the Krishna encourages Arjuna to do? Reaction-free work. Just like you have non-diabetic sugar. If you take the sugar also, you don't get diabetes, something like that. So how to do reaction? Yoga samvasta karmanam. One who renounces fruitive actions by karma yoga, whose doubts have been destroyed by knowledge. So one thing is we need to act with knowledge, and we should know how to utilize the results of an activity to progress further work, and it has to have realized knowledge. Vijnana it is called. Jnana and Vijnana. Theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge. So he is not bound by, and one can become conqueror of riches. Then you can conquer God. Once you conquer God, whatever opulences he possesses, we will also acquire, just like the son acquires the properties of the father. In conclusion, Krishna says, rise and fight. In other words, rise above the three modes and perform your prescribed duty with detachment. Tasmad ajnana sambhutam hristam jnanashinatmana chitvenam samshayam yogam atishtotisha bharata. So this knowledge is compared to a boat, and it's also compared to a fire. The fire can reduce to ashes, and the boat can help us to cross this ocean of material existence. So this is the conclusion. We'll stop here. Any questions, comments?
Hare Krishna. So there is one question from Malini Shankar. Pranams Prabhuji, how does one destroy sin? By surrendering to him or by taking rebirth? For example, if a man working in a slaughterhouse is doing his duty, is it a sin if he is a devotee of the Lord? How does he destroy his sin?
So the sin is having 4 stages of it. One is ignorance. The ignorance is the cause for desire. Just like the child is ignorant, so he desires something which is not really beneficial or wrong. Ignorance causes desire, and desire causes action, and action causes reactions. So that's why sin has these 4 stages. The first ignorance, and that ignorance causes desire. Desire causes some activity, and those activities will produce some reaction. So then what is the way to overcome sin? Again, there are 4 stages of rectification of the sin. Just like you sow a seed, the seed matures into a tree and then a fruit is formed. The fruit also, result of a sinful, just as there are 4 stages of doing sin, there are 4 stages in the result of sin also will manifest. One is known as Kuta, Bija, Aprarabdha and Prarabdha. That is like a pre-seed stage, then seed, then bud, and then the flower or fruit. So, but if you do devotion, it will remove all these 3 seed, that is sinful tendency as well as the sinful reactions. Both are removed by devotion or this transcendental knowledge. But people generally don't take to devotion or transcendental knowledge so easily. Just like a prisoner, you want to rectify the prisoner, but again and again he commits the same crime. So that is the unfortunate situation. So your question was, how does one destroy sin? So it has to be removed from the root. Sometimes you remove something, a plant or some thorns, bushes, they again grow up. So superficially, if you destroy this, that's known as prayaschita. You commit a sin and do prayaschita, again you commit. That's why people go to the church and every week, Sunday, they confess before the priest. And the priest says, I have forgiven you, Christ has forgiven you. And next Monday to Saturday, again they commit sin. So destroy sin means you have to destroy it from the root. So example is given just like you fry some seeds. The seeds will not germinate. So the bhakti is the process which will destroy the sin. But at the same time, unless the surrender to Krishna is complete, then proportionately the sins will not get destroyed. So that surrendering Krishna is talking in the end, but at the same time, the surrender has to be done with knowledge, and that knowledge Krishna gives through the other earlier chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So by taking birth, we don't destroy the sin. Of course, partially it is destroyed, but again, there are some other sins will crop up because the sinful tendency will not go away. A person goes to the hospital because he is sick. At the time he's in the hospital, he thinks, I will not do the same mistake again and not come to the hospital again. At the moment he gets discharged, again he goes and does the same thing. The sinful person in the slaughterhouse actually is not doing his duty. This is known as Avaram Karma, which means so-called duty. But therefore he is incurring sin only. So Shastra says he neither live nor die. If he lives, he will do more sin. If he dies, he'll have to suffer the consequences. So the only way he can destroy the sin is he has to take to devotional service. The next question is from...
1 minute. Can I add a little bit?
Yeah.
So if he is in the slaughterhouse and if he is doing his work, like work in a slaughterhouse, if he takes to devotion, he will understand that this is not the right job for him and he will quit that job and he will take up some other job. He will understand, like, if I give you the corollary to that, suppose somebody is working somewhere where they are doing, like a Govinda's restaurant, where they are cooking and offering prasadam and selling it. So that person who is doing the cooking or cleaning is getting some agyat sukriti. That same way, the person who is working in a slaughterhouse is getting some agyat dushkriti. So he has to leave that. And if he surrenders, he will leave. That is what is going to happen. This is the way he can, if he surrenders fully, this birth itself, he can get liberated.
The best example is Valmiki Muni. He was actually a dacoit known as Prasuratmaka. So he was always killing and dacoity. But then when he came across Narada Muni promised him that if you give up this sinful nature, I will assure your success. And that's why thereafter he became, by chanting Rama's name, that was also, and then he was able to compose Ramayana even before Ramayana happened. So that is the power of association with the devotee. And the next is
how do we distinguish between mind, intelligence, and consciousness? All the three look relatable.
Yeah. This mind, intelligence, and ego, actually, they are part of the subtle body. These three modes of nature, Sattva, Rajo, Tamoguna, they first affect the consciousness. Just like you have a hard disk. A hard disk is not coming in the partition form. We only partition it into C, D, and E drive. Similarly, the consciousness originally is pure. But when the consciousness becomes contaminated with Sattva, Raja, and Tamoguna, accordingly, you get mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are basically partitioning of the consciousness. The same, just like if you have disease, sometimes you see things too, your vision becomes affected and you see two objects. So like that, originally the consciousness of the soul is pure. At that time, mind, intelligence, and ego are part of the consciousness. But when the soul acquires a material body, comes to this material world, consciousness becomes contaminated by the three modes, then the consciousness becomes partitioned into mind, intelligence, ego, and they do three different functions. The mind function is just accepting, rejecting. And the intelligence function is to discriminate, make choices between what is good and bad. And then above that is the ego. Ego means the sense of identity. The false ego means you think that I am separate from God, I am independent of God. So how do we distinguish it? By the functions. The mind is superior to senses and intelligence superior to mind, and the ego is superior to the intelligence, and consciousness is superior to the ego. So ultimately we have to see the function in the down the line only, in the way this. That's why in the second chapter, Krishna is when Arjuna is asking about the Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajna, how does he talk? How does he walk? How does he think? So just like you cannot conclude, if you want to do a master health checkup, if you want to study all the different functionings of the body, then you have to do many tests. So like that, to distinguish between mind, intelligence, and ego is little difficult. So therefore, you have to observe the person from different aspects. Then you can know, okay, this is due to this person's mind. He's behaving like this because his intelligence is like this. He's behaving like this because his ego is like this. So like that, we have to, that is explained to some extent in the second chapter.
The function of the mind is to take us on a merry-go-round. The mind's work is whatever we are trying to do. It can be devotion, it can be studies, it can be anything where we are trying to concentrate. The mind will remind us of all the things that are pending, or will allure us with everything, maybe a TV or a movie or whatever, or cricket, whatever interests us, will remind us. And when you go there, it will remind you of what you left behind. Mind's work is to take you on a merry-go-round. Intelligence work is to help you distinguish between right or wrong. That can depend on each person's upbringing, conditioning, whatever experiences one has in one's life. That is the work of the intelligence, to distinguish between what is right, what is wrong. Consciousness is what Prabhuji explained. Consciousness is our thoughts, our consciousness, whatever we are thinking, we are feeling, in what state of mind we are thinking and feeling. That is consciousness.
Mind is basically always giving two options, this or that, this or that. Its nature is duality. And intelligence makes you go in one particular direction. Some people get stuck up in one thing because they follow the mind. Mind says something, they go in that direction. And that ego convinces the intelligence that it is right when it is wrong. So unless one activates the consciousness, pure consciousness, the mind, intelligence, and this ego are the sitting places of the senses. They draw a person away from the right path. Okay, thank you all for participating in today's session. Next week, we'll be doing the 5th chapter. Okay, we have learned about Karma Yoga, and we have learned about Jnana.
There is one more question, Prabhu.
Okay.
Sir, if everything is predetermined by fate, how can Lord expect us to take decisions in our life? Venkatraman is asking.
So fate is only one aspect. In fact, fate is created by us. Man is the architect of his own destiny. Just like you have put a road, for example, in the airport, the runway is there, but that is like the fate. But at the same time, the road is there for the aircraft to go into the air. So we can use our fate to create our future also. It's not that we have to remain stuck in the fate and say that I can't do anything. That's what Krishna is giving us devotion. Yes, you have, by your fate, you are put into that situation, which in other words, you have created your destiny, but still you can rise above that. For that you have to do devotion. So just as you got yourself into that position due to your own actions, if you take help from the Lord by performing devotion, then you can, even though you have got yourself in that situation, it will help you to come out of that same situation. Just like same analogy, the aircraft is on the road right now, but if the pilot is manipulating the aircraft in a certain way, the same road will help the aircraft to go into the air. So although fate is controlling us, by doing devotion, we can overcome the fate, in fact, benefit by fate. So there are many instances where people accepted the fate and did not condemn it, like Parikshit is there. He was cursed by the Shringi, but he had the power to overcome death also without doing devotion. But he chose to accept that fate and he enhanced his devotion.
So to give the example of the earlier example, there is one person who landed in a slaughterhouse and thinking this is his work. There is another person who landed in Govinda who is making food which is getting offered and which is being sold in a restaurant, that is his work. So it is the fate of each person which has landed him where he is. The choice that he has is to get out of there, and the way to get out of there is devotional service.
That's why Krishna says, Karmanyavadikaryasthi ma phaleshu kadachana. So we are creating our fate. So we cannot blame the Lord for that, why you put me like this, because you have made the choices and that's what you have landed there. But don't become discouraged with that. What Krishna is saying is, if you do a devotion, even whatever be your fate, I will deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Okay, so we'll meet next week.
So throughout the week, we are having detailed study of what we did today in 1 hour. So if you are interested, you can join that also. That is happening in English and Hindi both. So you are most welcome to join.
So see, the point is we are trying to cover an entire chapter in 1 hour. So it is possible I might have emphasized something or not emphasized something. So or you may have some doubts which are not answered immediately. So you can also take advantage of that. Monday to Fridays, 7 to 8 o'clock. And the same, I think we are circulating by WhatsApp also, the details. Thank you once again. We'll meet next week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Guruji.